Okay, everyone, this is my spoiler review of Black Mirror Season 6, Episode 2, Loch Henry. This was directed by Sam Miller and written again by Charlie Brooker. I loved seeing Myha'la Herrold in this, who starred in Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. I thought she was great there, and I thought she was even better here. And I'm calling her right now. She's going to be a mega star. She has that it factor. And if you're familiar with my reviews, I called it with Jenna Ortega years ago. I called it with Jonathan Majors, even though he's probably going on his way out now. But still, I feel like this is another one of those cases where there's just an actor that's about to blow up. So with this episode, it's interesting. I was shocked they actually brought in more of the Streamberry story and the digs at Netflix that they had done in the first episode, which I won't spoil if you haven't seen it. But it's funny that in the first episode they did show this documentary that Joan was watching as Loch Henry, and that it comes full circle to that. And we'll get into all that and what it's saying about documentaries in general. I say this in a lot of my reviews, and this is another case where this is just an exact example of an episode that was way, way better. On the second watch, when you know what's actually the twist of the episode and what's happening, it's more interesting. You kind of get the meaning of the whole episode way better. It's actually more entertaining, in my opinion, on the second watch. But you'll see that when Davis and Pia pull up to his mom's place in Scotland, that Janet is the first person we meet here. And there's a lot of hints about Janet being the killer. You see literally in the beginning, she says to Davis about Pia, "Pretty wee thing you have captured." That's not something people will normally say. It means so much more when someone like a Janet says it. And you see when Pia walks into the house, the first thing she is staring at is that mask on the wall that we'll see Janet uses later. So Pia is the instigator. Pia is, to me, representing Netflix and representing the Netflix philosophy. She's literally wearing a red coat this whole episode that looks just like the Netflix red. And she's the one saying things to Davis like, "Yeah, this egg thing's gotta go. This is gonna be hot. We should be covering this." And he's like, this is a lot to me. It's about my dad. And he's like, it's not effing content. But she's so opportunist about it, about making this will be a hit doc. And eventually, Davis will go into this mindset by the end. But what was always in Davis is a bit of a sicko like his parents. That is hinted when Pia says to him in the beginning when they're in bed. She's like, "Seriously, are you hard right now?" This is right after he tells her about his father being ill, and then he died a couple years later when he was 8, and it took a toll on his mom. That was already showing you that Davis is prone to some kind of weird mindsets, and that it will come full circle in the end that he's okay with using his mother's footage to make this documentary with his mother and father mutilating people. So it was more just, this episode to me was Pia bringing that out in him that was already there. And again, just hints after hints. I love that they planted in this episode. Like when Pia first sees the Bergerac tapes, there's so many of them. She's like, "Wow, your folks are seriously into it." That's a whole lot of it. And that just gives you a hint that that's something else that's behind those tapes. I like we got to see Podrick from Game of Thrones. I forgot he even was an actor, so it was good to see him get some work here in something that a lot of people watch, and him playing Stuart, which he does a great job. And he has this line to Davis saying, "Someday this guy is going to be polishing BAFTAs and forget about us," which we'll see. He'll get his BAFTA by the end of the episode. And we also see Stuart's dad is full-on alcoholic here. Something's bothering him. He knows more than he's leading on. That was a big hint too. And they did a good job this whole episode of misdirecting you to think that Stuart's dad was possibly in on these killings, which he wasn't. He, we learned, was just someone who took part in the Kinks one time with the parents, didn't know they were doing other stuff, but had his suspicions. And we'll learn the story that Davis had thought about his father. It wasn't that he got shot in the shoulder by Ian Adair. He had actually killed Ian Adair himself and his family, and gave himself wounds to cover that up. He probably don't want Ian Adair ever spilling about what him and his wife were up to, especially because people were getting on to Ian Adair. And when I'm talking about this important scene with Pia and Davis, and she's the one who's like, "Well, let's see the site where this happened," and she's jumping on it to make a film about it, she has that big moment where she's like, "If you don't want to make it, then I will." Like, again, this is just sounding like someone who's selfish for their own desires here, and sounding like a studio executive probably at Netflix. Or we'll say Streamberry. And Stuart loves the idea that Pia has to do this because it's going to bring the tourists back. And he brings up literally a Netflix documentary that the village looked amazing in, and how many tourists came just because of that. And he's like, I got a drone we can use for the opening shot. And then Pia's like, oh yeah, moody piano chord, I love it. And we'll see that's when the documentary shows the end of the episode. That's exactly what we hear and see. So it's just taking a stab at all these Netflix documentaries. And again, it's so funny that there's just an episode just making all these attacks at Netflix on Netflix itself. Now, Stuart's mom, we learned, passed away 4 years ago. But his mom was obsessed with this case and has a collection on it trying to find out what was going on with the deer. But his dad hated it. So his dad liked being in denial about it. And his mom was onto something. So it makes me think that she was murdered somehow by these parents. I wish we got more clarity on what actually happened with his mom. That is one of my gripes with the episode. Now, it's interesting when they take these tapes from Stuart's mom, Davis puts the tape on his mom's VCR. But before they do that, they do play a Bergerac VHS first and then take it out. So they almost actually just caught his parents right there. And you'll see in the police footage, Davis's father, the cop, he had a police sign to say stop right here, probably where they were throwing the bodies in the river. And we'll see Stuart's father staying in denial, calling Davis a parasite. He's like, why are you bringing this all back up? You want an award, a pat on the back? A little on the nose with the you want an award line, but so be it. But you see, it's interesting that Janet actually liked the idea of them making a doc about Ian Adair, just to slander his name more and keep the attention away from her and her husband. And I love when she's being filmed for an interview for the doc. She's like, last time I was in front of a camera, it was your dad's old camera. And Davis is like, well, he wasn't filming for broadcast like this. And she's like, can you imagine? That was really good. And you see they'll take that old camera of their father's and use it to film. And that's where they will use one of the Bergerac tapes to film over. It was also interesting when they went to the production company to pitch support for this idea. They're like, well, this isn't Ted Bundy. This isn't a no name. How are we going to sell this to streamers? It needs a hook. And that's where you see Pia is pushing the angle of like, well, Davis is connected. His dad was a victim. And he's like, yeah, a victim. And he starts going along with it. And even though in his story, in his mind, his dad didn't really die by a deer directly, it was he got sick in the hospital. But they're already showing signs of Davis converting and just doing that to get that gain in the industry. Now, I like how they revealed it with Pia watching here, the footage they recorded, and it cuts to Bergerac, which cuts to the dungeon, and we see it's the dad with Ian and then Janet. And Janet comes in with that mask. What I really appreciate about Myha'la Herrold's acting is when this is happening and she's scared being in that house, just little things she throws in as an actress, like her hand shaking when she's trying to call Davis was great. And Janet sees that Pia saw the tape. That's why she goes after her. She does not want her telling her son. What's so fascinating about this is that Pia ends up dying, running away, and falling into the river where a lot of their victims went. And really, Janet could have got away with this still. She just assumed that Pia went and was going to get to her son. That's why she killed herself. But really, she could have just kept going because Pia did die. And shout out to the actress of Janet, who did amazing here as well. And you see she actually has happy tears looking at her collection of these photos of her victims. And you see the butterfly pin, which was on the girl we saw in the police footage. That was a victim. And she leaves the note, which is the big reveal at the end that says, use this for your film. She leaves that for Davis. And I like she wears the mask out of pride, this sick woman, when she kills herself. Just great acting again by this actress. And when they show the doc on Streamberry, it feels so much like a Netflix doc. They nailed that kind of trailer. And we'll see that Davis wins the BAFTA. And Stuart's so happy, the bar goes nuts. And the production company boss literally dedicates the award to Davis and his late girlfriend, Pia. And he gets in his hotel room with congratulations from your friends at Streamberry. And of course, Stuart, when he's going nuts at the pub, there's fans literally wearing Janet's mask. It was nicely done how they revealed the note at the end and him looking at that BAFTA while drinking a glass of champagne. It's twisted, it's sick. This should be something that's completely traumatic for him, seeing his own parents do these horrible things. He still used the footage and won a doc through it. So it's showing you that really like twisted side of humanity that can happen for the award. And that's a case here. I really like that ending. I think it made it even better of an episode, and I really enjoyed this much better in the second watch. I do think it could have been a little shorter. I think that there could have been some things that were explained a little better. I'm not crazy about Stuart's dad having the reveal in the doc itself that he was with the parents doing kinky things. I wanted to know more about the wife. It felt a little bit like Chekhov's gun, but they never really gave us anything more with the wife, so that felt a little bit too easy to use her as a plot device and not more with that, like what happened with her murder. But overall, enjoyed the acting a lot. It really did almost feel like Black Mirror. It felt like it was Black Mirror at the end, But honestly, it felt more like Charlie Brooker here just wanted to do a horror episode of a show. And I wouldn't say it was that Black Mirror-y except the documentary part, the Streamberry stuff, but that was already kind of done in the first episode a lot. So I don't know, maybe it was like, okay, I get the Streamberry part of it now, but maybe didn't hit as hard as it could have if it had a more focused tech thing involved with it, because this is Black Mirror at the end of the day. Kind of just felt like it was using that to keep it a Black Mirror-esque type show, but it really was a horror show, and it was a good one at it. So I still enjoyed it a lot, but I'm going to give this one an 8.7. Let me know what you thought of this episode. Please comment. It helps in so many ways. Share this video if you can. And please subscribe. I'm doing every episode of this season of Black Mirror. I'll have one coming out each day, so you're not going to want to miss that. Please follow me at Steve Varley Show on Instagram and TikTok for more of me. And I'll see you next time.